Hey guys, Danielle Collins here, just reporting on the month that was June and the end of financial year. Thanks for joining me. Jumping straight into sales, at the time of recording this, we're sitting on 65 advertised properties on realestate.com. As always, most of that stock does sit in the South Hedland market with a much smaller proportion sitting in Port. The month of June saw 23 recorded under offers across all agencies. Happy to report that 19 of those were by Team Hedland First National and 15 by my direct team. It was a super busy month for my little team, not so much for the rest of the town. However, our team was very fortunate enough to still get 15 deals across the line and still really active numbers through the open homes. When it came to settlements for the month of June, this is where it was a really big month. Now, we saw 15 settlements in my team worth over $10 million in real estate for 30 days. Most of the buyers were actually owner-occupied buyers. We did have some investors in there. However, it was a super active month when it came to settlements. Lots of smiling faces, lots of champagne, but a massive end to the financial year. As we talk about end of financial year, just all things accountability. I'm a stats person. I always like to measure what's happening at the end of a calendar and financial year because you can't grow if you don't know your numbers. Happy to report that this financial year, we closed out selling 127 properties for Team Danielle worth a little over $75 million. Now that is growth on last year's financial year. We did do good numbers. We did 118 transactions, so slightly less, and 63 million instead of the extra 10 million that came with the 75. So we have seen definitely growth in sale prices and volume over the last financial year. It will be very interesting to see how the calendar year stacks up over the next 6 months. Before I jump into leasing, guys, I just need to touch quickly on some critical changes that have come into play from the 1st of July. As of the 1st of July, everywhere in Australia, we now have to conform to the Anti-Money Laundering Act. This isn't just a WA thing, this is every state of Australia now falls under this. So there is extensive buyer and seller checks that will occur when buying or selling a home. Now, when it comes to listing a home, please don't think we're prying into your personal business, but unfortunately, this is a process that is governed by the federal level, and we must do all the appropriate checks before we legally are allowed to list your property. From a buyer's perspective, this is done at a settlement level after the contract is drawn, but just please be aware for anyone that is listing or selling a property in this financial year or moving forward, there will be a few extra processes required before we can get you online, just to ensure that we are adhering to the new changes in the Anti-Money Laundering Act. Jumping into leasing, guys, at the time of recording this, we're sitting on 60 advertised properties on realestate.com. As always, most of that stock sits in South Hedland, smaller proportion sitting in Port Hedland. The month of June saw 21 executed leases across the board for Hedland First National. Happy to report we remain at 1% vacancy rate within our portfolio. So well done to the leasing and property management team for ensuring our vacancy stays at an absolute all-time low. Jumping into industry, guys, as always, I'd encourage you to jump onto my social media platforms. Everything is there in live time and a lot more detail. Guys, I just want to quickly touch on a few changes that we have seen. Obviously, the budget has rattled a few cages over the last few months, but self-managed super funds are now, I guess, on the chopping block. If you are a cash buyer, genuine cash in your super fund, you're all good. There's no changes for you. However, if you are intending on lending and borrowing through a third party for anything residential, that's no longer. So you can still enter the commercial space with it. However, if you would like to buy anything with your self-managed super fund, it must be done in cash and full capacity moving forward as of this month. We also saw, thank goodness, interest rates are on hold this month, so that is fantastic. Be interesting to see what happens next week when the bank does meet. However, with all of the negativity in the market at the moment, it was nice to have a little win with those interest rates staying stable. This month was a lot about gold, it was about iron ore, it was about dredging, a lot going on. So there is projects happening in the gold space and a lot of promise happening there. We did see FMG announce its 200 million tonne go out the port, so that was celebrated this month. We also saw the likes of Gina Reihard have her first production out of one of her mine sites, so that was also super exciting. Danielle was announced as the preferred contractor to do the dredging for the bypass channel in our port. Being the largest tonnage port in the world, this is a super needed facility. So that was exciting for the growth of our port also. BHP also at the start of June announced a $160 million commitment to the town of Port Hedland. Over half of that, $80 million, is being invested into the only high school, Hedland Senior High School here, for redevelopment and refurbishment, which is fantastic. The rest of the money is going towards a new aquatic centre and also more additional housing. And finally, guys, REIWA, the Real Estate Institute of WA, released their quarterly stats, and happy to report that Hedland actually saw the largest capital growth of anywhere in WA. So this is super exciting. We're not surprised by this because our market, as I said, isn't as impacted as the rest of the markets. However, super cool to see us leading the charge for WA. If you'd like to know how all of WA is going, jump onto that article to see how it's tracking. Just before I wrap up, guys, I just want to talk about the buyer sentiment and also the sellers. Look, there's so much scary stuff being played out in the media, social media, on the TV, everything at the moment about what's happening with the budget. Two things to consider. First of all, Port Hedland is positive geared, so negative gearing doesn't impact us, so stop worrying about that. As far as what's going on around house prices and, you know, markets crashing and economies crashing, that is not being seen here in Hedland. Again, what happens in Melbourne and Sydney is a very different kettle of fish to what happens here in Hedland. We still have a very, very healthy uptake of owner-occupiers. Not to mention, we've actually increased the investor pool because a lot of investors that may have been looking in the metro markets are now jumping into cash flow positive, which means the Pilbara region. So as far as what's happening here on the ground, yes, buyers are a little bit nervous because we all are. We're hearing what's happening in the media too. They do need a little bit more hand-holding, but I can tell you this month was a prime example. There are still buyers there, 15 contracts, $10 million worth of real estate. So things are still happening. You just need to be priced correctly and have the confidence to move forward. Guys, that's a wrap. The only thing worth touching is that WA runs into its 2-week school holidays, God help us all, as of this weekend. So if you are travelling, please travel safe. For anyone that has children, please enjoy these next 2 weeks. And look, if we can help you with your property goals, whether it's sales, leasing or commercial, you know where to find us, and we look forward to seeing you again next month.